Okay, we're here. We did it. Okay. Yes. And now I have to send out this version so everyone can find it.
We need a new link.
Yeah.
Okay.
1 second. Get that for everybody. Hi, everyone. I'll talk to the people while I find this.
Are the people with us?
I don't know, but just in case.
Hello, the people.
Do some vamping.
We are sort of live, quasi live.
Yeah. Technically live if someone found it on their own. Okay. Oh, yeah. Okay. Really good. It even says live. That's good.
Okay, great. Love this for us. Where are you putting the link?
This is a great question. I'll send it to you over Zoom if you want to update.
Cool. Yes. I will.
Yeah, Grant said we're here. We're doing it. Okay. Here is
Grand.
I wonder if people are gonna see this. Okay. Chat you this. That's that. You wanna send the send that to
Yes.
Okay. Instagram? Yeah.
Yes.
And then this one I will send to myself so everyone has it.
Yeah.
I knew you could see it. People saw our Zoom chat for a second, and that's good, actually. Okay. 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 And I'll set Discord.
Okay, now I'm gonna share it to our Instagram. Hello,
Perfect.
if you've joined us.
Yes, hello. Sorry if you're just watching us type for a second. Some BTS of trying to run a podcast.
Yeah. I'm doing a live stream. Okay. That is now on Instagram, so everybody found us via Instagram can now find us here.
Yeah.
Instead. Which is great, because here is where we are.
This is where we are. Okay. What does that mean? Open Studio. What do you mean? Open Studio. Okay. I think we're doing it. I'll wait to see if anyone is here yet. Okay. Yes, so we're here to talk about book one of Redwall, book one of Redwall, which has already been, I think that's maybe my first issue with these books, or this book, is that I have to say book one of book one over and over.
Yeah. Also, in looking for, like, in doing research into book one of book one, I think that's only the English editions. So
really?
Like the English and US edition. Yeah. I read that somewhere, that international editions, it's not called book one. It's called, something in different languages. Because it's international. But it's like volume one or something, which is a lot more like part one, which is...
right. Like part one is great. I love a part one. I think that's what we should go with.
For sure. I feel like an internal book one only works when there is indeed one book and like it's a standalone.
Yes. And I guess...
And you have... Yeah.
If like maybe Brian Jacques didn't know that this was going to be such a hit and that it would be, there would be so many sequels to it, but I do feel like maybe just in case you should go with part.
I agree.
Oh, cute. Anne's here. Or Anya, that's how you say it.
Yeah.
Hi, Anya.
Oh, yeah. Hi, Anya.
Okay. what can we? I'm letting people trickle in before we get too into it. I feel like that's a polite
Oh,
thing to do, but I will say, I read the physical book, and Ella listened to an audiobook version, and I listened to an audiobook version for like a chapter, but it was honestly too crazy of an
which,
audiobook.
yeah. So which audiobook version did you listen to? Because I listened to one on YouTube,
Okay.
um, which was just a reader, a very good reader,
Uh-huh.
actually reading the books.
Oh,
Um, and it was very soothing. So
that sounds
I don't
lovely.
know what you dove into.
I
Sounds
there's
like
you know how
chaos.
Spotify has audiobooks now? It happened to be
Yes.
on that. And I was like, "Oh, cool. Like I'm in the car, I'll just plug into where I was." So I was like midway through
Cool.
the book and I was like, "Okay, let me try this." And it was like a
And
full
I know that, but
cast.
I think it's wild to me that you do that anyway. And I know you do that with other books, but the idea that you could go from your own internal voice to other people's voices is already like insane to me.
Yeah, I started doing that like over the pandemic because I was reading those. I don't know if you've read any of Brandon Sanderson's Mistborn books.
Yeah.
Um, and I started those as audiobooks. But then what happened was I got too into them and I was like, he's not talking fast enough for how quickly I want
Sure.
to read. And so that's when I
Sure.
first started switching back and forth. And so like when I couldn't physically read, I would just do the
The audio.
audiobook.
Yeah.
But in general, I like the paper.
It's good. It gets you through them quicker, I guess.
Yeah.
Like the Mistborns, I mean, I Michael loves them. I've not read them,
Yeah.
but they're meaty, beefy
They're beefy.
books. Like
Yeah.
they're chunky.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah. So that's how it started. I mean, that's a good point. Maybe it's good for my brain to like be switching. So I don't get
Yeah.
it often will correct like I frequently will realize that I've been saying a character's name wrong the entire time in my head and I go, "Oh, okay."
Yeah. For sure. I hear that all the time. I think like one of my proudest things is that during reading the Fourth Wing books by Rebecca
Mhm.
Yarros, like she has a lot of Gaelic names, and because I'm
Ooh.
surrounded by Irish people, I picked up all of those pronunciations so easily and was just like,
Yes.
yeah, look at me go. Like so proud of myself. But yeah, like frequently like I'll in other books I'll pronounce something in my head and I'll just be like shimana. I
Yeah.
just sort of say it like that in my head and I'm like I know what I mean.
Yes. I feel like I often have like a shorthand for what I think of the name as. And this is actually something in Redwall that I was going to talk about. But normally, like, if a name is really long in my brain, I just, like, pick up the first three letters and, like, that's kind of the character's name for me. Like,
Sure,
that's
sure.
just,
Got
I'm
you.
just quick reading. But that backfires when characters all have, like, similar names. And I go, oh, wait, who? And I have to, like, because I took this Russian lit class in college. And this is my truly biggest complaint with all Russian literature, which is that like you can't have every character have the same name. That's not
Yeah.
I don't care if everyone has the same name when you're there, but it's so confusing and like then they'll use that to be confusing and I just was like, "Can you please you can't all be named Alexander." Like there has
Yeah,
to be another
fair.
name.
I mean, I have that issue with like any kind of like 19th, 20th century literature where like you'll have like six Edmunds and three Edwards, and you're like, that's worse. Because actually, if they were all called Edward, I could be like Edward M, Edward T, Edward S.
Yeah.
But actually, like then throwing in a couple road Edmonds is so good. And then you get an Edgar
Oh,
occasionally,
yeah.
and you're just like, Jane Austen, I beg of you, I beg of you.
Surely you've learned another name.
Yeah, right. Well, then she goes rogue and throws in like a Fitzwilliam Darcy, and you're like, whoa, okay.
You couldn't save that for like one of the eds.
I
Like you could have
know,
broken that
right?
into parts. Um. Oh yeah. Elizabeth just said for whatever reason I kept mixing up cornflower and I'm forgetting the name of the badger. That also starts with a
Constance.
C. Yeah, Constance. And then yeah, and Matthias and Martin. That's what I was gonna say. Matthias, Martin,
Yeah.
and
But is
Methuselah.
that the point?
I don't know yet.
Is the
Well,
Matthias Martin thing? Is it?
Matthias Martin has to be intentional, but I don't know if
Yeah.
Methuselah is.
Yeah.
Well, I guess to be determined. Yeah, do you want to you had some Constance thoughts. Do you want to
Oh, I
launches.
love her so much. So I realized that this book, so I had thought I'd read this book as a kid. And
Mm-hmm.
actually, what happened was it had been like a class reading book that a teacher had been reading to us at
Mm-hmm.
school. So
Oh.
I have a rough idea of like what's happened
Mm-hmm.
and what happened. But you know, there'd be a day where I'd be like off sick or whatever, so you miss bits. So actually, I feel like I'm reading it basically for the first time, and then there are a few moments where I'm like, oh, I remember this. Oh, I remember this.
Yeah.
But like for the most part, it feels quite fresh, so that's exciting. But I do remember my love of Constance, even as like an
Really?
8 or however old I was when it was read to me. Yeah, I
Oh.
loved and I still adore Constance. Like
Yeah.
what a she's just my girl. Like what a legend. Like
When she throws that table.
when she throws that table and then like rages in a way that is basically Shakespearean, right?
Yes.
And she's like, what does she say? Like, leave while you still have skulls or
Yes, it's
something? Like
something
it's
cool.
excellent. Like,
Yeah.
oh, Constance gives me
Yes.
life.
Yeah. And like also like there's something, it's such a the mama figure, the maternal like protector, cuz like she's this huge badger hanging out with these mice, and like
Yeah,
it's just like these are
totally.
you don't come near these little mice. These are my little
Yeah,
mice.
yeah. I love that she's so maternal and protective, but is still like quite terrifying. Like
Yes.
her big ass paws just smacking down
Yeah.
people. Like it's great.
Yeah. Yeah, like there's something like I don't know, it's the perfect like yeah, she's nurturing, but also like she'll kick your head off. Like it's
Yeah,
not a big
totally.
deal.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna say I read these books like I want to say in like fifth grade,
How old is
and
that?
oh
Like 10? Like 9?
oh god, that's a great question. You're like yeah, 10 or 11 maybe. Like
Yeah.
I read these. Okay, here's a good timestamp. I read before I read Harry Potter, just as like not that I think
Yeah.
Harry Potter had come
I
out maybe, but I didn't read the first one until the movie was coming out. So, I read
yeah.
these were early chapter books for me. Like these I remember
Cool.
like getting Redwall and being like, "Whoa, look at me reading a big book."
Oh.
Yeah. So, but I remember them being like I thought it took a lot longer in my memory to get to Clooney and like to get to the action of it all, but I think that was just kid brain like processing reading like slower because I was like,
Totally,
wait,
yeah.
Clooney's here like chapter 2. It's like Clooney the
Yeah.
Scourge rages on, and I was like,
Oh,
oh, okay.
like can we talk about like the just the repetition of like the name Clooney the Scourge?
Oh,
Like so good.
so good, like, and like always saying it. I like how like very clearly evil Clooney is. Like it's such
Yeah.
a trope. Like there but it really works in this because I think, at this time it was like, well, we have to get past the point that they're mice and they're like all these creatures. So like to do that, it's like let's make this one very clearly evil. We'll like hit him with the
Because
normals.
yeah, because there are good rats, aren't
Yes.
there? There are like normal standard good rats who like don't like the rat discrimination that's going on,
Yeah.
but also Clooney is an evil rat. It's I found it interesting that like we can have a conversation about the way that suspicious characters are kind of really clearly denoted in children's fantasy.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously there are problems with those things as well. But I do quite like the just describing a character as evil straight off the bat. Like
Yes.
there's no sort of like gradually showing you that he might be evil. I think it's like the fourth paragraph describing Clooney is like his eyes glinted evilly.
Yes.
You're like, cool, the bad guy. I got it.
Well, and also to make it real clear, his one eye, like
His one eye glinted evilly.
yeah, there's also I was trying to find it before we started and I couldn't, which annoyed me. But there's a part where they describe what Clooney is wearing and he's wearing like bat wings as a cape,
Sick.
which is so cool.
It's so
Like,
sick.
that's so cool. It's in like
Yeah.
he just has
And
that like head on a pike with his batwing cape, and I was like, oh,
yeah.
cool.
And then he has his tail with like it's
Yeah,
got like a
it's like
poison
a
tip
whip.
or something. Does it like a
I
sting
think
at
he
the
just
end?
uses it as a whip, which also
Yeah.
seems insane. But does he have a
Complete
poison
like
tip? Did I miss that?
yeah, like there's one point where like when he and the others go to Redwall
Mm-hmm.
for the first time and they have the kind of like parlay moment and they will have to unarm themselves. He like unattaches a
Oh,
poison tip thing from his tail. It's and
cool.
like right, like it's a sleigh.
Yeah, yeah. He's cool and like very
He
evil and
is.
like clearly like I don't want him to win or anything, but like he's cool.
Yeah, he's a good villain.
He's got
He's a really
style.
good. Yeah, he does.
Yeah,
He's a really good villain.
yeah.
Um, for sure. I also just like the way that, you it's clever. I think you go into it thinking that he's a bit like he's just this like crazy sadist who
Mm-hmm.
likes to murder things.
Mm-hmm.
But he's like quite manipulative and quite strategic and like, he has layers,
He
does
does,
Clooney.
much like an ogre.
Yeah.
Um, he. Oh yeah, well, there's something else. Let's see. I made little notes so that I wouldn't forget all the things I want to talk about.
Amazing.
Um, good. Yeah. Yep. Too many names. Oh, because of this, also, I loved, uh, like imagining the tiny scale of everything,
Yes.
and so like even with his like. He's using his like tail as a whip and things like that, but it's like, but it's so small. And then also like their little swords, and like when they were
Yeah.
talking about their bows and arrows, and like they're tiny. I was imagining just the tiniest little arrows.
Yeah, it's cute,
It's
isn't
really
it?
cute.
Like it's very cute. Um and yeah, just imagining them like climbing trees. Like I'm like there's a bit where someone's got like a fear of heights and I'm like that is big for a little
Yeah,
guy,
that's a skyscraper.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
So I understand the fear.
yeah. Um, do do you remember like what happens basically? Like, how much do you remember of the book?
um like oh, what you mean at the end? Like
Mm-hmm.
basically nothing.
Yeah, same.
Like basically nothing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I
Which is great.
agreed. And I thought I would remember more, but
Yeah.
as I was reading, I was like, no, this is all
This
fresh
is
for me. I
brand
remember
new
like
information.
I would really I think that thing happened where like because I was reading it so young, like early things because I remembered his big ill-fitting sandals. Like I
Yes.
remember being like, he's so silly. But that's about it.
I remembered that the warrior was called Martin
Mm-hmm.
because I have an uncle Martin
Mm.
who I'm not going to go into details, but like it's just very funny that that's the name of the warrior for me. Like it's very funny, you know. Um, so that I remembered that.
Mm-hmm. It's just Martin.
Just Martin.
Yeah.
And it's quite like I don't know. It maybe isn't it. Martin. It's not like Methuselah. Like Methuselah is such a grand sounding name. Martin
Yes.
is someone's uncle. Like you
100%.
know what
Yeah.
I mean?
You know, Martin.
Martin down the road.
Yeah.
So um I remember being struck by that at the time, and I still find that quite funny.
Yeah.
What are you thinking about the dreams?
The Clooney's dreams or Matthias's dream or
Well,
Martin's dream.
both.
Well, yeah, all of the above.
Yeah, like what is the symbolic connection between Matthias's dreams and Clooney's
Oh
dreams?
my
Like, what are we
god.
saying?
This does feel like a in English class a short answer question. You'd be like, "What do you think about what is there a connection between the two dreams?" And I'd be like, "Yeah,
Yes,
I think so."
8 marks.
I mean, it certainly seems like Martin the Warrior is trying to help from in all the ways he can, even though he's
sure.
long since gone. To me,
For sure.
I don't know. Like, and that's the thing I don't remember. Also, like, I don't remember if there's like magic in these books of any sort.
I mean, there are talking animals.
Well,
So.
okay, what you know what I mean.
But yeah,
Sure.
beyond the talking animals,
Yeah, that's normal. We've established that as being the baseline. Yeah,
the
like
norm
that's the
for this
norm. But I
world.
don't know if there's like wizards in this or anything.
Yeah, I can't remember either.
I don't know.
But it feels like there's kind of religion. That's
Mm-hmm.
sort of the thing that it is. It
Yeah, true.
you know what I mean? It's sort of set up. Obviously, like every like there's it's an order, and there's
Mm-hmm.
like it's like a friar, and everyone calls him father, and
Yeah,
abbot, and like it's very like monastery like,
yeah,
isn't it?
yeah.
So
It's also
um
not clear like what religion which I like. It's like just
yeah,
a little
the
sect.
yeah, but if it feels kind of like almost Arthurian in a way, like the
Yeah.
code that they live by is quite like chivalrous. It's obviously still quite patriarchal.
Mm-hmm.
um it's about like honor and protecting like the lowly, and
Mm-hmm.
so it feels like it draws on that. um it is really interesting to think about, like, so this was written in like the 80s, and
Yeah.
as far as I'm aware there were books coming out until like the early noughties. I think
Oh yeah, yeah.
there are lots
I
of
thought you meant
books.
any book. I was like, yeah, books come out all the time.
There are books coming out like even now, guys.
Yeah.
Did you
Did you know they're
imagine?
still writing books?
um but so it just it's interesting thinking about like the like social context of the 80s,
Mm-hmm.
and why this might be the kind of fantasy story that was written for children then. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I'm always really interested by like thinking about sort of late Cold War era um Western culture, and the anxieties around not being able to figure out who the good or the bad guy was. And then you get this like fantasy literature that really is very binary about like
Yeah.
who is good and who's bad, and it
Yeah.
feels like there's a kind of nostalgia for in a weird way the sort of like the conceptually easy days of like the Second World War, where it was like Nazis bad, allies good,
Mm-hmm.
we like let's go get Jerry kind of thing.
Yeah.
And then you know what I mean? And then you get like the Cold War in the 80s, where it's like, well, I think this about how wealth should be distributed. Well, I think this about how wealth should be distributed. Are
Yeah.
you a communist? And then like the insidiousness of kind of rising McCarthyism and all of that. So like it's just interesting to me that like in the middle of the 80s we get this book about anthropomorphic animals. So it feels like it's really trying to separate itself away from any kind of social commentary, because
Yeah.
it isn't including like real people.
Yeah.
But it very much is like the evil fascists want to claim our home and impose upon us
Yeah.
their ideals and either kill us or enslave us. And we, the good,
Mm-hmm. The pious.
pious,
Yeah.
yeah, like kind of sort of Christian
Yeah.
vibes of it, we are going to protect the humble and the meek kind of
Mm-hmm.
thing. So
Mm-hmm.
uh I thought that was, yeah, interesting
Yeah.
looking at it
Yeah.
as an adult.
Yeah. Audra said, as an adult reading these books, that was something that continued to bother me. Mice were always good and rats were always bad. Because, like, they do, and I agree, because they do say, like, there's, in the very beginning, there's an offhand, like, they're giving rats a bad name, but then also, I don't know that there's ever mention of a good rat.
No, it's literally just in that council meeting, at least as far as
Yeah, as
we've
far as we've
read,
gotten.
where the rats are like, oh yeah, of course it's got to be rats that are so evil.
Yeah.
And then we never hear mention of like a rat again, like,
No.
because that would have maybe been if we were trying to take it away from being quite essentialist,
Mm-hmm.
having a good rat would maybe be good,
Yeah.
just for like
Just to keep it.
um yeah,
Yeah, I agree.
like to keep it fair.
Yeah.
Yeah, so yeah,
You're so dark. Your
I know
background
the
got.
light just went really, yeah, it's
Oh,
I'm
I
trying
see.
to keep up. The I always forget that this happens when we're on a call, that like the evening comes when and it just suddenly gets really dark in
Yeah.
here. So I'm trying to keep up like a white
Oh, I
haze
see.
on my thing. I actually might really quickly
Yeah, do it.
turn the light on.
This is
If
fun.
I go stop video on Zoom, will it stop video on the live stream?
Yeah.
Or will it? Cool. I'll be 2 seconds.
No one will see your back. And now there's a. Hey everyone, just me here now. Um, let's see. Audra said, I have a very distinct memory of being asked what is the theme of this book as a kid for a free reading assignment, and I couldn't figure it out because there wasn't a lot of character growth. Elizabeth said, I think there might be a good and bad weasels mentioned slightly more, but the weasels are like that too. Did you hear any of that?
Ooh. Good and bad weasels, I heard.
Yeah. Elizabeth said, I think that there might be good and bad weasels mentioned slightly more, which I do think is true.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Well, so what's the deal with Shadow then, right? Shadow's part weasel, part rat. Is that the vibe? Okay.
Oh, they kind of made his like species vague. They were like, he's like weasel-like, but then also I feel like the vibe was that like, what is this guy? You know what I mean?
Like, is he a rat? Is he a weasel?
Yeah.
Like, it's very ambiguous.
Yeah.
Is he some kind of hybrid?
Maybe.
You know, that's interesting.
Oh,
have you?
Oh, go ahead.
Go on.
No, I was just to say we got to talk about who I think my favorite character is, which is as you would say, Basil.
I knew that you would. I knew. I knew. As I was reading it, I was like, this guy is so Alexis core.
I love him because here's the thing, he kicks ass. He's awesome, but also, yeah, he left to go clean his apartment and make tea, and that really resonates with me. Like, he's got a little bit of ADHD, and he's a little drunk all the time. Like, yeah.
He's kind of sassy as well.
Yeah.
Like, he's got a real kind of snarky tone. Also, if anyone's wondering why I've got one headphone on and one off, it's because I got my ear pierced today.
Yeah, it's very cute. I love him.
Thank you. And after I did it, I was like, I have my headphones on. How am I gonna do this? So I've gone for a one-on-one off look, basically, is what happened.
Audra said it's required that everyone loves Basil.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, Basil is iconic. But I just knew I was reading that. I was listening to that and was like, Alexis is gonna vibe with this guy.
Well, it's funny too to give like the classic like Mad Hatter, like I just feel like we're used to rabbits from Alice in Wonderland being associated with crazy people, and like I feel like we just combined everything in that moment. He's like, yeah, this rabbit is the Mad Hatter, basically.
Yeah, but also like a genius though, right?
Yeah.
Like also like really smart
really
and brave and
yes,
a veteran.
He's been around. Oh
yeah, wait. He's been around the block.
What is his full name? It's cool.
Basil Stag Hare.
Yeah. Oh, duh. I forgot about this. Yeah, the stag is
Basil
one of the best
Stag.
Part. Basil Stag, and that he gave him like the story of him being like, I wanted to, stags are beautiful. That's got to be me.
Yeah. So good.
It's so good. What were you gonna say before I got too excited about Basil?
What was I gonna say? Oh, so do you think, because obviously these are, I mean, when I was doing some just research into like how crazily successful these books were.
Yeah.
Because it's funny, like when I was on the Reddit, it was like, oh, it's not very, like the vibe seemed to be that Redwall was still this sort of like not very mainstream niche thing.
Yeah.
But then you look at the numbers and you're like, those are not niche numbers. Like,
no.
You know what I mean? Like, I think it's like over 20 or 30 million copies sold.
Yeah, the copy of the book I have on the top says over 20 million copies sold, and this isn't like a new copy.
Right. So it's interesting. I'm just sort of wondering like how many fantasy authors post 1986 read Redwall, and if there are any books that you can think of that maybe like draw on things, because it is such a kind of classic, it follows a really classic fantasy structure, even though it is kids.
Yes, yeah. I mean, I think that's sort of, it's such a fun introduction to fantasy. Like,
for sure.
It's like a really approachable way to get into also like how often I feel like fantasy ends up being like kind of political. And that could be really daunting, but this makes it so approachable because you, instead of being like, you know, the whatever family from here and the whatever, and like they've been at odds or whatever, it's like, yeah, I can understand like the mean rats and you know, the mice. Like that's a very easy way of getting into it.
For sure.
There was like also, this one I think came out earlier, but I do feel like there was like a tiny animal fantasy like renaissance for a little while, like starting in like the mid 80s through the 90s, like because there was Poppy by Avi, there was Despero, like yeah, and I just feel like there was like a bunch of Hero Mice books. And I think I'm missing some too.
So good.
Because I
remember
sought them out.
Yeah. I guess there's that thing, just that vibe of like small but fierce kind of feeling, right? You know? Even like the mice in Cinderella, you know, like in the Disney one, like are so sort of like brave and really part of the story, you know?
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, I just said I feel like Redwall is like the gateway book to any adult who now has a Lord of the Rings obsession. And like I do feel like that's the
big facts.
Yeah. Like
yeah, for sure. Hard agree.
Yeah. What's to say? There's like nope, it's gone. I was gonna say something about the pacing. Oh, the pacing of the book is very interesting to me. Because it like you have your setup, you're setting up Redwall and like sort of the monk stuff. But like I said, I remembered it being a lot more of the monk things when I was a kid. I was like, oh yeah, for a long time you're just you're at the abbot with them, and you're really not.
No, stuff moves really quickly.
And a little bit like character development wise, I feel like there's a lot more telling than showing at first. Because it's a lot of being like, that Matthias he sure is this. And you're like, he is?
Totally.
What?
Yeah, I so agree. Yeah, for sure. I felt that with like, you get a lot of characters being, and I guess you have to assume their prior knowledge of Matthias.
Yeah.
But a lot of the characters are like, you have like, just Methuselah at one point, and maybe it's like the first time we meet Methuselah. Methuselah's like, you've the mark of greatness upon you, and you're like, cool, okay, chosen one,
got it. Yeah, here it is. Like, don't worry about like the audience like seeing that for themselves or anything, or the reader. Like, it's just, this is him. Because then at the end, I think Methuselah says like, boy, I sure wish like a young smart mouse was here to help me, you know, like Matthias. I was like, yeah, we got it. Thank you. And they almost feel like afterthoughts, like they were added. Like I was like, we're not setting up that he's gonna be special enough. We got to put in a couple sentences about that throughout.
Yeah, and the same with Clooney. Like, just everything being described as like he evilly looked, he evilly flicked his like. It's just like, we get it. He is the villain. Like, his name is Clooney the Scourge.
And he's like described as like the boogeyman also. Like, but yeah, please give us more descriptions of him just being a jerk. Like,
yeah, for sure.
It's great.
You can so see an editor being like, it's a kid's book. You need to make it really clear, who to root for.
Yeah. I do think though, like by the end, of this book, I was like, all right, here we go. Like, let's go find that sword. Like, it does start.
Yeah.
You know.
Oh my god, yeah, we haven't even talked about the sword.
I know.
Okay.
Yeah.
Tell me your thoughts about the sword.
Well, what are you? Because I feel like you go first.
Okay. So, right. This is what I mean by it feeling quite Arthurian, you know, like the big quest to find the sword that's going to change it all, and the person who finds the sword being the person that's going to change it all. Like,
yes,
you know, that it's such a signifier in this genre, I think. And you know, if you're a young person reading this gateway drug to fantasy who hasn't taken a year-long course in medieval to Renaissance literature like I had to, this is so exciting, right? You're like, wow. And also it just kind of really introduces the idea of in the same way that in books that tend to have humans, you might have like some kind of familiar, or like a creature that plays that role of like cool animal sidekick.
Yeah.
You also have like the object, you know?
Yes.
And there's always sort of, there is always an object, and it might, and like whether we're talking like Voldemort's Horcruxes or we're talking the ring,
Mm-hmm.
it,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it's just another sort of like little signpost of this being like epic fantasy for kids,
Definitely. Yeah. Yeah, it's funny. I didn't even connect it to the Arthur sword, and like, of course,
Yeah,
like, yeah, he has to find it, or to it's the
to
classic
fulfill
tale.
his
Yeah, yeah,
destiny.
exactly. Yeah. Elizabeth made a good comment. She said, there is like a hard switch from Matthias as a cute little clumsy baby monk who dreams of grandeur and adventure to like Matthias is our brilliant military strategist leader who
Yeah,
like only sometimes trips over his big shoes. It's like exactly like
totally.
yeah, it's like one chapter of him being clumsy, and then it's like we need Matthias. Where is he? Like,
Yeah,
what?
like there's a lot of like, it's so impressive to see his leadership skills grow. And I remember listening to that and being like, didn't he just like put up his hand and say something loudly?
Yeah.
But like it's interesting actually, like, so just thinking about the age at which I listened to a teacher read these, and
Mm-hmm.
then thinking about like I do a lot of stuff in schools, so I'm around kids this age quite a lot now. Um and like the one thing I would say that is sometimes the flaw in fantasy, and I love fantasy so much, which
Yeah.
is why I'm sometimes so critical of it, is that like it does set up this idea that the only way you can be of use to any kind of movement is by being its leader.
Mm-hmm.
And like if you're not Matthias, and you're not like wisecracking enough to be a Constance or a Basil,
Yeah.
then sort of where do you fall in like,
Yeah.
the push for change or the push to defend something you love? And I see it a lot in kids where we'll be doing a group project or some kind of team building exercise, and there's this real desire for all of them to be the one that takes charge, even
Mm-hmm.
if that isn't necessarily where their strengths lie. And I think that's been such a learning curve for me as I've got older, is like when I was younger I was often, because I was like quite loud,
Mm-hmm.
pushed towards leadership roles.
Yeah.
And I was like a young fantasy reader, so I was like, okay, I am going to be the Matthias, the Aragon,
Mm-hmm.
the well, actually Frodo's a good example of where that's sort of not the case, but because Frodo,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, the Harry, all of those sort of characters, I was like, yes, that's what I want to be.
Yeah.
And actually as I'm older I'm like, I'm really chill not being in charge.
You guys figure it out. Let me know if you
Yeah,
need a potion. Like,
yeah. But then I also wonder if it's like, I think because I was the oldest sibling, the oldest of my cousins,
mm-hmm.
I was sort of always put in charge.
Yeah.
Whereas, like, to be the hero in stories like this, you have to have the arc of being the like naive dreamer who trips over their shoes, and then you grow and you learn and you develop into
Yeah.
the brilliant practitioner that Matthias is after 30 pages.
Yeah. Because that's a really good point.
Are you
I,
like, okay, wait, I have a question for you to
yeah.
further this,
Yeah.
right? Because I heard this on another podcast and I was
Okay.
like, I need to ask Alexis this. So imagine there are two axes,
Uh-huh.
and then on one axis is mummy and baby,
Okay.
and then on the other axis is tyrant and Serther.
Okay.
So are you like mummy tyrant? Are you baby tyrant? Are
Oh,
you mummy
like it's like
Serther?
a yeah, which
Yeah.
right, I see. Like okay, wait. Wait, say them again. Okay, say them again.
So you've mummy and baby,
Uh-huh.
and then you have tyrant and Serther.
Okay.
And you can be, I think your people are often different ones in different relationships and in different
Yeah,
relationship dynamics. But like, what do you?
I think I mean those terms are harder, but I think like what I think I tend to be like okay in a crisis situation or something, right? Because I'm gonna like
Yeah.
that's kind of what we're like
Yeah,
a
yeah, yeah.
crisis emerges and like where do you fall? I think I end up taking a leadership role frequently because I think like oh yeah I'll let them do it and then I like they start doing it, and I go, that's a dumb way of doing it. Let me do this. You're doing it all wrong. So whatever that is, whatever nightmare person that is me.
No, I think I think that's Mummy Tyrant.
I think it's
isn't
Mummy.
it?
Yeah,
Like,
I think so.
I think that's Mummy Tyrant.
Yeah, I think
for
it's
sure.
like I try and do it in a kind way, but I'm also like, here's all the reasons that that's not gonna work and it's bad, and
Yeah.
actually never mind. You know what? Forget it. I'm gonna do it. I'll do it myself.
Totally.
Where do you think you fall?
I think I'm a mummy server, and I think people would be like, maybe like, except possibly for in my relationship with Michael, where I'm I think I'm a tyrant.
I think you're
but I think with every tyrant. But I think in all of my other relationships, I fall into the mummy server thing of like being like, I will do it. I will do the thing that needs to be done. But like, how can I help? How can I help you? How can I do it for you? Which then means that I can be like a bit of a martyr about things sometimes, you know?
Right.
But I think that like what's interesting is having read books where it's the chosen one narrative, really, isn't it, at the end of the day, that like causes this weird thing with like where you see yourself in like how you think you position yourself as a hero is basically what I'm trying to say. And I think that my weird relationship with that has come from like, reading too many chosen one books.
Definitely.
Where I'm like, but because in life, no one ever, or rarely do you get like chosen. You have to either like assert yourself or take a step back.
Yeah.
And Matthias is so chosen. He's so chosen that he kind of gets to be baby tyrant.
That's true.
You know, like he isn't like the most experienced. Some of the time he doesn't know what he's doing.
Yeah.
But he's so his confidence where he's like, but I have this innate leadership skill quality. And everyone goes, yes, you do, baby tyrant.
Do. Yep. Let us know what you need done. You got it.
Yeah.
I wish he was here. He's so good. And you're like,
right.
He is?
Whereas like I think I'm more of like a Constance where I'm like, I will support from the ranks.
Yeah.
And I will beat the crap out of anybody that touches you. But like I'll be back here with my big paws. You know?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, those four are tricky too. Like the tyrant, because it's like, it's a little. It's not a perfect one, I think.
No, totally not. Like it's not nuanced at all.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like a fun. It's a fun thing to play with. I feel like maybe that's why you like Basil, right? Because Basil's there, like, no, this is stupid. Like,
yeah, I do. I generally do relate to that character also, like, because he is helpful. You know what I mean? Right away, he's like, "What do you mean your fight? No, I'm here. Like, what do you need done? You got it." So there's like the server of that. But he's gonna do it his way, and he's gonna leave for tea, and like, that's fine.
Yeah.
There's also something I love his attitude in that moment of like, he does not get what's wrong with it.
No.
And he's like,
at all.
Yeah. And then he's like, yeah, I made mint tea. And there's like, oh, what, you want us to come for mint tea? And he's like, well, no, I only have 4 teacups, and there's P5. And I was like, exactly. You're a proper host.
Absolutely.
No, I think the chosen one things, I spent a lot of time like as a kid like being like, I bet if I stare at this pencil long enough I can I can move it with my mind. Right?
I did that too.
Yeah.
I did that too.
So there's also that. I think those chosen one books do that where you're like, oh, come on though, if I really try.
Yeah, or just the genuine like shock and disappointment of not getting a Hogwarts letter on my 11th birthday. Like I really felt that at the time.
Yeah.
Because I was like, oh yeah, no, of course it's a made up world. But yes, there was a little part of me that was like,
oh, rats.
You know, is it no?
Yeah.
No, of course I didn't think so. Or just like every time I stroll through the woods, just keeping my eye out for like a rogue dragon egg.
Yeah.
Just in case, like, oh, maybe I'll stumble across a dragon egg today. Who knows?
I don't know.
Maybe.
Yeah,
You
you
know?
have to be casual about it. Everyone knows that if you like try and will that too much, it doesn't work. You just have to be like,
Totally.
oh, I'm out picking berries, like I always do. Um, I do prefer chosen one tropes to like family lineage, like where it's like actually he's the son of the great whatever. That's why, and like I really hate that trope, and it's so
Yeah, you've said
popular.
this before. Why do you hate it?
Um, I think that there's something just so boring about like, and like I don't know, sort of gross about like it all just matters who your family is, and it doesn't matter how hard you work. And like
Yeah.
I don't like that.
Yeah, and those do tend to be the stories where there's like a king
Yeah.
or queen. Like there's some, yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I get that. I feel like I guess I don't mind it so much when the book itself feels like it's like pointing to that thing and going, isn't this kind of toxic that this is the way things go? Do you
Yes.
know what I
Yeah.
mean? As opposed to it being like he must reclaim his like I love the Lion King, but like
Yes. Yes, exactly.
the
Yeah.
having yeah, like
Yeah, and like I guess that's good, but there's something like does the Lion King still work if he's just an escaped, like if he's not the son of the king and he just comes back to kill Scar, you know what I mean? Like
mm,
the only
totally.
you know what does work for me though is in Lord of the Rings when Aragorn uh like does reclaim his like rightful heir and then sends all those ghosts. Like that part is sick. And
It
like
is sick. It is visually very cool.
so
Like,
it sometimes it works, you know.
yeah, for sure. The payoff there was worth it, even if the kind of overall politics of it, there's something to be desired for
Yeah.
me. But like we could get into the overall politics of Lord of the Rings and be here for
Oh
hours.
my
So
god. Yeah. Oh, Elizabeth said, I will say Matthias's clumsiness makes him so relatable. It's easy to see yourself as the chosen one through just like related to him and his blundering and his dreams. Like,
true.
so that's a good point.
Yeah.
Like, that's probably why they, it makes sense to give him that to be like, look, any old mouse, he's clumsy, but he's special.
Trips over his big sandals all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and I will say that like and I don't know, maybe I missed this in reading it, but like, are there any other mice of Matthias's age that aren't cornflower that we meet on the page?
Oh, not that I
Because
noticed.
because because sometimes with like a chosen one story, you'll
Hmm.
get the like there's like a general cohort
Yeah.
of like young people,
Hmm.
and so the conversation around why that person is chosen is kind of you're like, why wasn't it the smart one
Yeah.
or the brave one or
Yeah.
the
It's very,
strong one?
very Wheel of Time. Like,
Right,
yeah.
totally.
Which of
Yeah,
these four is the
exactly.
whatever,
For sure. Or like with Attack on Titan, I don't know if you've ever
Mm-mm.
watched that. It's such a good anime.
Okay.
But in that you have this cohort of like young cadets, and the guy that is kind of the chosen one is really the worst, like not a good chosen one, which is what
Mm-hmm.
makes it such a compelling story.
Yeah, that's cool.
Because he is kind of an asshole and like makes stupid decisions and is rash,
Yeah.
but just happens to have all this power because of a set of circumstances.
Mm-hmm.
But everyone around him is smarter, braver, funnier, like better at a crisis, like better at problem solving. Like he really is like has the least like the worst skill set.
Right.
So but we don't really get Matthias's cohort.
Mm-hmm.
So okay, yeah, Elizabeth says it's just them in the generation. Colin Vole is the only other, but
Oh,
he's
Vol, yeah. And he
yeah,
doesn't, and
the Vole.
we established that he's annoyed by Colin.
Yeah.
He's like, shut up. Trying to
Oh,
rescue
that
you.
Vole.
Yeah. Which
Um,
also feels like, don't worry, it's still Matthias. It's not Colin. He's not a
yeah.
special one.
What do we think of cornflower?
This to me is the most like kind of cliched character, and like at least it's not like hubba bubba cornflower, but it is very like
The Hubba Bubba cornflower moment.
well, yeah, but like it feels mostly it's like she's just so kind and warm and like caring and very much like that falls into the not quite a damsel, but like pretty much a damsel. And that thing of like, we're supposed to want them to be together, even though I kind of don't know anything about her.
Yeah, totally.
She's just the girl.
We know that she has really, really long eyelashes.
Oh, yes, of course. Yeah.
She has such long eyelashes.
Can you imagine a mouse? She's wearing a little dress and she's got long eyelashes. Whew.
And what is it? Doesn't she have like cornflowers like round her head or something?
Yeah,
at some point?
which it's one. Yeah, I think she made a little she gives
it
him a
is
little thing.
She gives him the thing. It is a cute image.
It is
for
cute.
sure. Like,
It's very sweet. Like, it's very sweet, and I'm not like, it's not like offensive. It's not
No,
which
no,
is
no.
It could be much worse. But
Elizabeth says it is kind of hubba
It is kind of, yeah.
It is kind of hubba. I agree.
yeah, I guess also because they're young. Because in my mind, it's not like, look at the tits on that mouse, but
Yeah.
it's like, look at the eyelashes on that mouse.
Totally. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
What do you, and like, it's so interesting thinking about like just the Redwall as society, what it tells us about society, like the church mice with all their children.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
also, I was worried about Mr. Church Mouse.
I'm so worried about Mr. Church. Hasn't he been, how many times has he been stabbed?
I thought he was dead.
Has he been stabbed, what, twice? Did he get stabbed twice?
Yeah, I think so. Or, yeah, I think you're right. And then,
sure.
We didn't even talk about the snake.
Oh, yes.
So cool.
Is it what's the snake called again? Like
let's see if I can find it.
He's called like like Addersville Poison Tooth or something, isn't he? Like...
Let's see. Unless someone comments it faster than I find it, but Asmodeus.
That's it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah, the snake.
Yeah. Because they literally say like it's the devil. Like, you remember they're telling the story and they're like, oh, careful, that's the devil. And I was like, oh, that's some classic snake as devil imagery. You love to see it.
And like outside the monastery as well,
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
And also I thought it was interesting, like, kind of gives a greater, like, you have these, like, the good and the bad, like, the mice and the rats, basically. But then also you introduce this snake who sort of lives outside of all of that. Yeah. Because he kills a bad guy. Like, yeah. And you should be like, woo, but it's sort of just more scary because it's like, oh, these are not the only enemies you have to look out for.
For sure. I have a theory about this.
Mm-hmm.
I think that the Redwall Society is very much like a mammal privileged society,
mm-hmm.
because we don't really get any birds that I can.
There's a Sparrowhawk moment where they talk about how they befriended them. Yeah.
Yes. But like they eat fish.
Yeah.
So, which is kind of interesting because obviously there's so much about like the healing and protection of animals, and then they eat a fish. So they're pescatarian mammals.
And sure, but like you could just have them eat, grains and berries.
Yeah.
But...
So it doesn't like. Yeah, I'm just like, okay, so these are mammals. These are rabbits and weasels and stoats and mice,
mm-hmm.
and maybe rats,
mm-hmm.
that we don't talk about.
Mm-hmm.
The rats may be a marginalized rats, and like, but that's it. Like, it's interesting that the snake isn't welcomed. Into their community.
Yeah, no, it's not their friend. But I mean, is that because he just keeps eating them?
Quite possibly.
That's a quick way to like. You're like, I would love to invite you to the book club, but like, you keep eating who's ever in charge, and it makes it really hard to run the book club. I don't know what chapter
for sure, which is completely fair enough, but it's just then interesting that they then eat the fish.
They do eat the fish. They do. Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah. So I just I think it's a mammal.
It is
a mammal only society, and it feels like with that bit with the snake.
Mm-hmm. Classic. Oh yeah, Elizabeth said,
"Don't stray into the woods."
The church mice and cornflower don't feel like they're given much agency initially. The poor and women, except for Constance, are just kind of existing without.
So, that's very true, Elizabeth. They're not given much agency.
No, they're sort of just like
Constant,
following around.
yeah, yeah, exactly. In Constance, she's like older.
Mm-hmm.
She's like earned the respect of the community.
Yeah. Yeah. And like, does Constance have like is there another badger around? Is it just Constance?
It's just Constance.
Hmm.
Constance. Yeah, I think it's just Constance.
Okay.
Yeah.
I guess to be determined also. Who knows who's to come
Yeah.
next?
Does she need a badger friend? Does she
Yeah.
need a badger friend?
I think we should. I think we're gonna rewrite these.
Yeah. Maybe she gets one later.
Yeah.
I agree, Elizabeth, that the description of the food sound really good.
Oh yeah. Those feasts sound good.
They sound, I want to go join a little mouse feast.
Yeah. Yeah. And again, you have to imagine with their tiny swords and imagine how tiny their forks are.
Teeny little
They're so small.
Because at one point, because obviously, like, there's this big fish that's feeding all of them.
Yes.
And then you're like, that's not that big. Because I Googled it. What was the fish called? It was like a, began with a G. Anyway, I Googled the fish.
Yeah.
And it wasn't that big a fish.
Right.
It was some kind of trout.
Okay.
A gelding? Is it that what it's called?
Oh yeah,
a
that's
gelding
right.
trout, something like that.
Yeah.
It wasn't that big.
Mm-hmm.
Is the what I learned. Gelding trout, yeah, it's a gelding trout. And oh no, wait, that's not what it is.
No?
It's some kind of trout.
Yeah.
Is the point. And they're, that's like a light lunch.
Yeah.
So
one fish.
But it fed all of those little mice.
Tiny
all those little mice.
And it is funny how like they balance that of like you basically they're just like we're treating them as humans, right? Like they're doing all these like human things, except like every once in a while it's like, but fish still enormous. Like the scale is the thing that stays the same, stays real.
Yeah, or like the occasional little like word. Obviously, like the mole is called the foremole.
Yes,
and like she's a house mouse, like stuff like that. Like
yeah,
the housewife,
like
house mice, not housewife. Like it's quite cute.
Oh yeah, there was at one point with Constance, they say something about like with her badger sense. And I was like, what is badger sense? Like, is she Spidey sense?
Yes.
Since when do badgers have badger sense?
It's when Clooney is coming and she's like, my badger sense has told me that he's evil.
It wasn't his one eye and a head on the pike. It was your badger sense. Okay.
His bat wings and him whipping his tail around.
And him saying things like, I'm evil.
Cackling maniacally.
Overall, what's your not even rating, but how are you like overall impressions of this first part of this first book? Like,
I'm really enjoying myself.
Yeah.
Like it's a fun time.
Yeah.
It's got all of the ingredients that I enjoy.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I want a t-shirt that says Team Constance or something. Like I want some Constance merch. I was honestly just like, how can I get a badger with Constance on something that I can wear?
Yeah. Yeah, it'd be really good. Even
like because
a sports jersey, but
would be so great.
It'd be pretty good. Yeah.
Yeah. Which and then the people who know would know. That would be cool.
That would be really cool.
Maybe for future Comfort Creatures merch we get like
Team Constance
something.
That's a good idea. Yeah, agreed. It's
what about you? What are your overall?
Yeah, it's really fun and like they're especially like the way it ends where like I was like, oh good, we're having like a little basically a treasure hunt, like we're gonna find the sword. And I love clues in a book and trying to like the puzzly nature of it. So I was like, all right, here we go. Like we're getting into it now, and I'm excited to keep reading. So
yeah, I love dreams in books as well. That's a big thing for me. I love a magical dream or a prophetic dream or something.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm enjoying that too.
Yeah. Oh yeah, the thing I like the last thing I was gonna say about that, the audiobook version that I found. The Spotify one, it is nuts because it's a full cast and it sounds like it was recorded this doesn't make sense because the book didn't come out, but it sounds like it was like recorded in the 70s or like all at different places.
Right.
Like all the voices are like different and weird. And like I was like, I cannot listen to this. It's too much. And I don't like the actors are trying too hard, to be honest. Like I was like, chill. You guys
Yeah,
are
please.
really giving this your all in a way that I'm like, it's so distracting. Anyway.
Maybe we need to record an audiobook of.
Ooh, not a bad idea.
It's not a bad idea. I'm gonna stop giving us more work to do that.
Yeah, we're not gonna do that. Is the
We're
thing.
really busy.
Yeah.
People.
I also saw
One day.
there's a graphic novel version, which is fun.
That is cool.
Yeah. I'd like to
That's
see it.
great.
Yeah.
I can see that being really like beautiful.
Yeah. And I'm still surprised this hasn't been like adapted into like a bigger
Yeah.
show.
So
or
when
something.
I was doing some research, I did see there was like at one point murmurings of a Netflix sitch. But I don't know if that just never happened or if it's just been shelved, you know, like
Yeah.
all of the Reddit threads about it were from like 3 years ago, so maybe writer strikes. I don't know.
Oh, interesting.
But I would love that. Wouldn't that
Yeah.
be cool? Like
It'd be
an
really
animated
fun.
version would be so good.
Yeah. And I think kind of what we're saying, like a great gateway for people to get into more, more fantasy things.
For sure.
So, anything else you wanted to say about Redwall? Did we miss anything?
No, I'm just excited to continue.
Yeah.
See what happens next.
Yeah, we'll also now that I've figured out how to live stream, I'll be able to schedule the next one out better because I know what I'm doing. So we'll let you know when the part 2 one, when we're gonna do that, whenever we figure that out. I'm excited. Cool. Thanks everyone for watching.
Cool. Thanks, guys.
See you later.